Welcome to Bank Tellers, folks, where we get to tellin' about the banks.
I'm here for it. Let me tell you about the bank.
Exactly. All right, so that voice you hear is Siya Vansia, Chief Brand and Innovation Officer at ConnectOne Bank. Siya, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. It's Friday. I'm talking to you. Does it get better than this?
We're having fun.
The only thing that would make it better if we were live in person.
Next time. All right, let's jump into this, Siya, because bank tellers be telling things quickly. So tell us about ConnectOne Bank, the what, the why, the history. Just give us a little bit of how we got to today.
So ConnectOne Bank is a commercial bank that was founded in New Jersey by an entrepreneur who was sort of frustrated with his banking experience. And so at some point said, you know what? I'm just going to start a bank because there's got to be a better way to do this. And we were founded in 2005 and have been a high growth, innovative. I don't want to say client focused because I'm a big fan of banks and all banks are client focused, but I feel strongly like we built our entire business with the client at the core because it's in the foundation. And so we know the small business because we were the small business, and we focus on the builders, the entrepreneurs, the movers, the shakers. And so we have this culture of, if you're not growing, you're dying. And we've been a high growth institution that's forward looking. And the growth is to navigate the environment, but to support the clients. And so we're in 3 states now. We just announced a pretty significant transaction out to expand our New York metro presence. And I don't know, today's my 14th year anniversary. I never thought I'd work at a bank for 14 years, but now I'm telling you about it. So here we are.
That's big. Congrats. 14 years. So in that trajectory, what have been, so commercial banks, you know your customers very well because you are your customer, commercial bank. I don't know why I made that plural. What have been kind of the defining moments? It sounds like maybe focus and not steering off of that specific customer has been a big piece of it.
Yeah. So this is a hard question because I could tell you our IPO was a defining moment. I could tell you running the company was a defining moment. I could tell you acquiring banks or buying a Fintech was a defining moment, or entering the New York City market. But those were all moments that got us to the next phase of growth, and they were all milestones. So I think if I were to boil it back, it was one minor change. So our founder, Frank Sorrentino, was the entrepreneur that started the bank, and he was the chairman of the board. He was not an employee of the company. And 2 years in, the board decided that wasn't working, and they suggested he take over as CEO. And so I really had to think about it, but if that was the decision that really changed the culture of the organization and set us down a different trajectory and allowed this entrepreneurial spirit, instead of coming from a board seat, to come from within the organization and infiltrate every component of the bank. And I think that's the core foundation we were built on. I think I had to think hard about it, but that I think is the defining moment.
So it sounds like that translates into just how you think about innovate. I mean, just having a founder entrepreneur, having somebody that is running at speed, as you said, I would imagine translates culturally, but also eventually culture will translate into product. So it sounds like this is also a way that you're thinking about innovation, and just like the cultural aspect of it is kind of one of the pieces driving forward everything you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we decided as a company to align innovation and brand, I think speaks to the ConnectOne story and what we're trying to do. And I think, my innovation is a big word and it means a lot of things. And so it's cool to have the title, but what does it mean? And so to go back to your question, I had to sit down with the management team and define, what is innovation going to be? Well, it starts with, who is ConnectOne Bank? ConnectOne Bank is a high-performing commercial bank that offers a world-class, best-in-class client experience. Anything I do on the innovation side has to support that value proposition, because that's the brand I'm building, right? And so I'm not really in the business of following the hype cycle or riding a trend wave. And of course, I love exploring that and unpacking what is going on and understanding it. But the at the core, the innovation is so tied to the culture, who we are, and how we deliver to our clients.
Yeah, I mean, the 1 + 2 = 3 is definitely something I'm hearing here. So if you're not trend following, it sounds like maybe you're not running after the latest AI tool. Maybe you're not thinking about the most cutting edge net new large language model in the space. What kind of technologies are you thinking about? What trends are you following, if or thinking about, if any, and
Okay,
how do you evaluate them?
I have an answer you're gonna hate.
I
So
love it. Good.
I will say I'm always learning about. I like having a pulse on what's going on. But I don't want to I will never set a mandate to say, okay, we have to deploy some AI.
You're
We
the
need
one bank in the US that doesn't have an AI mandate? Is that what you're telling me?
our mandate is to educate ourselves and the team around what it exists. Um, and AI is a tricky thing. There's a lot of automation technology that we've been used that's getting rebranded, and so some of it is hype, and some of it, there is a difference that we have to define, understand the risk, and figure out how it drives value. But to answer your question, what am I focused on? I like the boring stuff that actually makes a difference and drives value, and so I spend a lot of my time recently looking at focused on infrastructure. We all know, we've done a lot of work here on client experience, and that will continue, right? Because I think fintechs have taught banks a lot about what a better financial experience can be. But most banks, I want to say every bank, but there's a few that are more forward, we're in this weird state where the world is moving to real time. Data movement happens in real time. Money movement is starting to happen in real time. And we are tied to legacy systems. Some of our processes run on badge. And we have these big, banks have many business lines. So it's like this giant Rubik's Cube to solve. I'm terrible at Rubik's Cube, so that's what I use that example. But so that's really where I'm spending my time, because I like problem solving, and this is like a big, hairy problem.
So when you say infrastructure inside of a bank, that can mean a lot of things, right? That could mean like core infrastructure and truly thinking of, whatever your core instance is or your multi-core instance. It could mean bringing in a new piece of fraud prevention technology. Could mean creating efficiencies among the things you already have. Yeah. Where is your focus in that stack right now?
So I don't want to say all of it, but
all of it.
I like looking at an end-to-end process. So, for example, who do we want to be for the small business versus the middle market business, and what does the experience look like from the client, and then backing into why. And it's hard to say I'm only focused on fraud monitoring or only infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because listen, I have teams, a fantastic team that focuses on those things, but some of our challenges are so interconnected that I have to take a holistic view. I didn't start there. It's what I've learned. You pull on a thread, you learn more, And so I can't have a better fraud tool. Let's use that as an example. If I don't have a better real-time data flow, well, what data do I need and where do I need it to feed from? And so now all of these dots start to connect. And so we have to clearly define the current challenges to then reimagine the process.
Makes sense. Sitting inside of being somewhere for 14 years, myself, I've been inside of a...
to hear that.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing is what I was referencing. I was at a community bank before at MBKC Bank. And
awesome.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think is tough is the prioritization, right? Is you're competing sometimes against, the largest of the large with $12 billion in, R&D budgets and things along those lines. Have you ever found yourself in a place where you've figured out something meaningful in terms of prioritization, in terms of that focus side of things? Because I think it is really, really hard inside of our industry to prioritize, to put the first thing first. And I'm curious if you've ever gotten any good advice, or if you've ever kind of come up with your own advice to yourself on how to prioritize inside of the world of banking, especially on the innovation side.
Mm-hmm. I don't have a good answer for you because I think, you know, I think I'll tell you what I do is I have a couple of irons in the fire at all times. And I'm always, always be looking, always having conversations, always unpacking and uncovering things. And I have posters on my computer. Sometimes I work on things and I'll unpack things and I have a picture of a parking lot. They end up in the parking lot. Some things end up in a graveyard. But I think that there are multiple things internally that we can prioritize, but oftentimes there's so many exogenous factors drive our priorities. And so if you're always sort of if we're ready to move down one road and I've already learned about this topic or I've already unpacked some of our internal processes, I can move a lot more quickly. But I think if I had to summarize that in an answer, it would say, if you can be flexible, your priority and have a North Star into what you're doing, it becomes a lot easier to pull a priority and execute when the time is right.
It really is a startup culture. Like listening to you talk, it sounds like it reminds me a lot more of my time in startups than my time in banking based on your description.
Real that bank, Zach. I'm not the best person for this podcast.
I love it. That's why you're the perfect person for this podcast. And that's also a perfect pivot, and that's a lot of peas for me not to have a pea popper thing on my actual microphone.
What?
It was a whole bunch of peas. We're going to transition into you personally a little bit. Told you there were more peas. So what's the best, I kind of hinted, I guess, a little bit at this, but I'm curious what the best piece of advice you have ever gotten in terms of your career has been.
So I know I reference our founder, Frank, a lot. He's been my boss for 14 years and a great mentor to me. And in 2013, and I still have the article, I'm going to send it to you after this. He sent me an article and had a talk with me, and it was a writer. It was titled "How 50 Cups of Coffee Changed My Life." And the writer asked people for a coffee meeting and had 50 cups of coffee with 50 different people. And I was an admin at the time, and he's sort of told me I should start, like, this is a small company, take advantage and learn from other people and ask for those meetings. And I probably didn't take it seriously right away. I probably didn't take that advice right away. But once I started, I learned an incredible amount from so many other people's experiences. I learned about businesses I didn't know existed. By the way, you're building a network all along. And what you don't realize is every cup of coffee you have, someone says, hey, you know who you should really talk to? And they connect you with someone who's like-minded, who can add value. And I think that I don't think I realized how valuable all of that was until later on.
Hugely. Yeah. I mean, your network accrues over time, right? I love that. I think it's great advice. In those moments of asking that person for coffee, whoever those, that 50
Sometimes
people.
Sometimes it was an espresso martini,
There you go. Coffee or drinks, whatever. We're having a beverage, whatever it might be. What is the general ask that you would make, right? Because one of the things you hear a lot is like, hey, can I pick your brain? Tends to end up in, the spam folder or trash inbox really quickly. What was the ask that you made in terms of trying to get them to spend time with you?
So I don't believe in cold calling as a company. I don't think I ever went in cold. It also feels weird and stalkery, but I think you're typically connected to someone, you build some sort. If you've had a networking conversation, there's something you've talked about. Hey, I really loved what you had to say about large language models. Would you like to get coffee and unpack that more? I'd love to learn more. And the coffee's never really about the thing that you asked for, right? You talk a little bit about that, and then you unravel, you get to know a person, you find other synergies, or maybe you don't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think there has to be a little bit of purpose, and you have to actually care about the thing you want to talk to the person about, right? You can't blindly do it.
Yeah, the other thing that comes across here is you genuinely are a curious person. Like I can tell that, and I mean, I've talked to you before, so I know that you ask questions and you have curiosities and you want to drive to understanding a human. So I would imagine that, you ask to get together for one reason and you end up on a completely different subject.
Yeah, say Zach, like, let's get coffee because I want to know who Zach really is and I want to understand your soul. But
Well, I mean, flatter, that is one way to flatter, and that is one way to end up in a position for sure. All right, let's,
or if I'm like a stalker list.
I mean, either way, if you're not doing your job right you're not a salesperson, but I always like to say that you're not doing your job right as a salesperson unless you're on at least one stalker list or one no-fly list somewhere, right? Like, this is how these things work. Let's transition into the rapid fire segment. So I am curious, if you weren't in banking, what career do you think you would have pursued? Where do you think you'd be today?
So I think I'd be in some sort of entrepreneurial environment. I actually found the bank because I tried starting a business out of my dorm room and I needed a bank.
Oh, wow.
I can't put my finger on it because I don't know, but I do think it would be something that allowed me to solve a problem, but also be creative.
I
And
love
maybe
that.
that's what's next. I don't know, but
There you go. I mean, it's a journey.
yeah.
Next one is describe your leadership style in 3 words.
Gas station attendant.
Tell me more.
So I view leadership as one of the hardest things because we put pressure on ourselves to be good leaders, and you read about these icons, and by the way, there's this whole factor that you have to deal with, which is called humans, and it's hard. But the way that I view leadership and the way that I've been led is like, when do you go to a gas station attendant? Like, I have my car, I'm ready to drive, I know I'm capable and I'm gonna move. But if I need fuel and I feel I need help, I need support to keep pushing forward, if I'm lost and I need directions, maybe I need a roadmap. And I know we live in like it's Google Maps now, but if I need an overall direction of where to go, that's what the gas station attendant does. And that's how I see my job, not just for my team, but for others in the company, because my job is not to take someone down a certain road. I don't see myself that way, or you see those images of like the leader pushing someone. My a leader should take someone's strengths and just allow them to run it. You need a North Star, of course, and just be there to support them along the way.
I love that. I've never heard that before. I love that. I love that.
Maybe I'll be my Halloween costume.
The gas station attendant? I dig it. That's amazing. Okay, we got...
It's a very Jersey thing. When I say that to a lot of people in the country, they don't know what I mean.
I get, because that is one of the states that is still requiring legally of a gas station attendant, right?
I don't know what to do at a gas station by myself.
That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, I think I drove through Jersey once last year and I ran into that moment and I was like, I don't know what to do with someone else involved in this supply chain.
So I'm just really confused. None of it makes sense.
All right, hard transition into what's the first app that you check in the morning?
So I hate to say this, but it's my Gmail app. But I'm not looking for emails. There's a couple things I check every day. I get a Substack email, which sort of like it's like a summary. It hits at like, I don't know, 5:15 in the morning, and so it's like an overview of the topics that you're interested in. Maybe not timely, but leadership topics, fintech, what's going on in the world, what's new in New York City, restaurants. Yeah. The ABA, the American Bankers Association, has something called News Bites, and I read that every morning. It gives me a good overview of what's going on in the banking space, regulatory space. There's a fintech and innovation section, and then I read Seth Godin's blog every morning.
Wow. Okay.
I love that. I've read it probably for 10 years, every single morning.
That is one of the most impressive, just day after day after, like the slog of that. I cannot imagine doing that for that long. It is so impressive.
Well, I'm sort of scanning. I don't read everything, but the first half of my job is brand, and so I have to have a pulse on the news cycle and PR and what's going on in the world. So I have to do it in the morning, otherwise.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. I mean, more so him writing it every day is the thing that blows my mind. Like, just
100%. I know, he's a machine.
Prolific.
I've taken some of his classes, and they're fantastic.
Yeah, we will link to Sir Godin in the show notes. last one before the closing segment. What's in your wallet / how do you pay?
Always a ConnectOne card in the wallet on Apple Pay, but I'm usually using a travel card. Always a travel card, always get the points, and then use them.
100%. 100%.
But I had to plug the brands.
Well, you do what you got to do. I'm a Delta card and an MBKC card, so I'm with you. I'm still on the same page.
I have the Sapphire and the Amex, and I toggle between the two.
Just depending on what's happening.
Honestly, it's like whichever one I didn't leave in another purse is what it calls.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. This has been a journey. We close our journey with a closing message from you, Siya. What's one message you'd like to leave with our listeners today, be it inspirational, advice, or just your favorite quote?
So I'll tell you, everything makes sense when you look back.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people have said that to me, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I think the one thing I've learned in my career journey is I started as an admin. I was doing things I didn't want to do. I was doing things I didn't enjoy. I didn't like helping the credit team. I didn't like working on the loan pipeline. But I didn't know then. I wasn't just like completing a task. I was actually absorbing information about how a process works or how a department is run or what departments connect to what, how processes flow. So guess what? Now when it's time to explore fintechs around this certain space, I don't know everything, but I've got a great baseline. But I didn't know that then. I was like probably complaining about what I was doing. But looking back, everything that you do, everyone you meet has something they can teach you. And everything you do is informing you in a way you may not really be aware of.
I love that. I've actually never heard that quote or that kind of idea interpreted in terms of knowledge. And that is so true. I mean, if you look back and think about, I was actually a gas station attendant at one point, and I had to, I sold car washes in college. So now thinking about that, I'm like, actually every piece of my life has been accidentally building on itself to get to this place accidentally, which now makes sense, but all in retrospect.
And there's probably, I would bet, I didn't even know that about you when I but I would bet there's so much you learned in that experience.
Oh yeah.
Helps you maybe shape better conferences or helps you from a business perspective. And one has nothing to do with the other, but you absorbed so much. And the things that you didn't think, like at times you didn't think you were learning, you were picking up so much.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a wonderfully inspirational note to end on. Thank you. We will link to ConnectOne, to you, to all that in the show notes. But anything else that you want to leave on in terms of where folks can reach out to you or where folks can find more info on ConnectOne?
Well, the second thing I check every morning is LinkedIn. It's probably, weirdly, my favorite social media channel. So I'm always on there. I love to connect with others. Reach out. Give me a shout.
I love it. All right. We will link to that in the show notes. Siya, thank you again. And I'll be seeing you in 5 weeks.
Thank you guys.
I love it.